what is it that people want? They want to be able to live well, to feel well, because when you're well, you can learn. When you learn, you can earn. But at the moment, what we've got is a government that's living, just enacting, policies of austerity, which aren't working.
The Prime Minister argues that the government is dealing with issues related in terms of lifting health outcomes, education, economic opportunity, but you wouldn't see it that way at all.
No, I mean, I am Māori and live in the community that are Māori. I'm Māori mandated through the electorates. We have 6 of the Māori mandated politicians, and certainly that's not the view that we have. We have still double the rates in unemployment. We still have, and it's a little bit like, we've got the household debt is now nearly $100,000 per household. We've got $1 million per hour that's been borrowed. We're not seeing the housing issues resolved. We've still got massive health inequities and disparities. There's nothing that we're seeing solutions focused. What we are seeing, sadly, is a government that has continued to, address the fact that they're okay normalising the 2% that own the 50% of the wealth in Aotearoa. And what we'd like to have seen is a fairer tax system, that we actually were able to address the inequities head on, and that we were able to, again, like I said, take a united view with iwi side by side in addressing some of the economic solutions that I think they have.
Well, talking about tax, I mean, the Labour Party now is looking again at capital gains tax or maybe wealth tax. I mean, does that give you a sense that, I guess, on that side of politics, that you can reach some sort of agreement around a sort of different sort of tax structure?
Yeah, it was good to sort of see Labour finally come on board with that, because that was sort of some of the language we were looking in the last campaign, is that there was just no indication from them in being able to address, capital gains tax. Well, for us, we have a wealth tax. And, when you've got 2.2 million people in Aotearoa living off less than $30,000 a year, you have to come up with something really transformational to address the tax inequity, the unfair tax system. So it was nice to see them catch up. And I think that has sort of, as you addressed, has been about bringing a better way of us being able to talk and collaborate. That was remiss in the 2023 period. And I think if we really look at what is it that people want, they want to be able to live well, to feel well, because when you're well, you can learn. When you learn, you can earn. But at the moment, what we've got is a government that's living, just enacting, policies of austerity, which aren't working. And that's the issue. They're not working. And then, we have to sort of address it. Then what is that? What is the solution? I think, ghost houses, identifying them and being able to address tax for that. The fact that we have a Prime Minister that's made, $700,000-$800,000 from no capital gains tax is unacceptable in Aotearoa in 2024 when we have a growing homeless list. So, and I think also hardworking people want to be able to afford their own homes. I know that people say it's not the investment dream, but actually that's the Aotearoa dream. And I think everyone should be able to access that.
I mean, aside from tax, how else, because the Prime Minister talked about 2025 being the year where the government's going to focus on growth. What do you think's needed to get growth going that will provide jobs and incomes for people? Yeah,
and I think we had an offshore renewable energy policy come up last night in the House. And I think, well, actually, offshore energy is not necessarily the right way for wind. We're way behind the market. Germany has already told us some of these things. If we're going to do wind turbine, then leave it onshore. If we're going to be looking at renewable energy solutions, then for goodness sake, study what is already working now, because we're 10 to 15 years behind the ball. And this is on all governments, not just the one we've got now. So I'd like to have seen us take a real big chunk of investment and innovation towards renewable energy and address the energy security issues, not invest in offshore companies that come in, they monopolise the energy, they take it offshore, and then they charge horrific prices, and it still becomes energy, equity issues in Aotearoa. So I think there's some things we should do with our natural resources smarter. I think there's a positive way to exploit our resources and energy smarter for economic growth. But also I think that this government has offended the hell out of the Maori and iwi economy. And if you look at some of their long-term perpetual funds, they've performed better than non-Māori in shorter times. And I think we must encourage private-public partnerships respectful of te tiriti and what those opportunities should look like. And I think that's the conversations that are just totally gone cold now because you cannot attack the rights and interests of the Indigenous peoples, then expect that they're going to rush to having public-private partnership discussions with you. So I think we need to mend. We need to stop the division. We need to mend and find progressive ways of moving forward. And I've called it, and I know it's offended the hell out of people, but it has been an absolute white supremacist approach to business that completely locks out the Indigenous peoples. It doesn't work. Doesn't work.
What's the potential then for the Maori economy to grow? I mean, because it is growing. And, you've got all these iwi authorities and others. I mean, but how much more could it grow if it has?
Yeah, I think so. For example, I think fast track is unnecessary if we were able to sit there and talk to iwi who've shovel-ready. I'm sorry to use that terminology from 2020 to 2023, but they are shovel-ready projects, and we've seen them in Ngātirangi, we've seen them in Taranaki, where iwi are ready to go and develop housing initiatives and projects, address the housing shortage issues and come up with mixed models of social and rent to buy. But for some reason, the government has put the lid on them, the cogwash on them. We've got businesses that are going broke because of the energy, equity issues, and yet we've got those communities who have iwi relationships in there who are ready to come up with regional solutions. And I think those are where we should be, in a regional sense, investing in, not in a sense that sort of like I'm out to here, get some points, and I mean in a long-term sustainable relationship way where the community, because nowhere else are these iwi going to be, they are, for example, Ngāti Rūnui in South Taranaki, they are vested in infrastructure. They are invested in the whole community. Their health services provide, to 49% non-Māori, 51% Māori. So those are the relationships that are critical to growing. So supporting Māori wards, supporting the ability to be at the table and run the table is a good way to go forward in business. That's progressive business. This, monocultural approach, this arrogance that we've seen come out from, sadly, Christopher Luxon's party is disgusting, and then letting the minor parties like ACT run this really divisive Hobson pledge approach is not economic. It's not economically sustainable for the future of Aotearoa.
To support our award-winning independent journalism, subscribe to nbr.co.nz.